You choose every day. You choose how you want to approach the day. You can choose to wake up and say, wow, this is going to be absolutely miserable and it's the worst day of my life because I got to do XYZ. Or you can choose to wake up and say, hey, this is going to be a difficult day, but I'm going to make the best of it. I'm going to be around amazing people. And when I'm done, I'm going to be really proud of what it is. And more importantly, it's over.
You are now tuning in to the Roughnecks podcast with your host, Cole Nixon. Much love.
What's up, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Roughnecks podcast. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to tell you guys about Desert Fox Golf. I've recently partnered up with them, and they have some awesome products that you definitely want to check out. They have something called the Phone Caddy, which is the best phone holder in golf. It comes in many different colors, and they even have ones with funny sayings on it, like, I work to support my golf habit, and it takes a lot of balls to play like me. If you are like me and like to use a golf app while you're playing, then this is the thing for you because it holds your phone in a convenient location right on the golf cart. They even have a cigar holder attachment for it. One of my favorite things is their drink aid tumblers. They have these awesome 17-ounce stainless tumblers with a screw-on lid to hold your favorite beverage while playing around a golf. They have different versions from the classic swing aid to nurse aid, hunting aid, fishing aid, and my personal favorite design, the Patriot Aid tumbler. Head over to desertfoxgolf.com and use the promo code Roughnecks for 10% off your order. But let's get into today's guest. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Roughnecks podcast. This is episode 141, and joining me today is a guest that I'm super excited to have on and to expand this partnership that I've worked up that I'm really looking forward to growing with in the future. Joining me today, though, I have Scott, who is the co-founder of Desert Fox Golf. You guys have heard me talk about Desert Fox Golf a lot lately, and that is with good reason. But without further ado, Scott, welcome to the Roughnecks podcast.
Hey, Cole, thank you very much for having me on. It's a real pleasure to come on, talk to the audience about Desert Fox Golf and talk a little bit about what we got going on and, of course, get an opportunity to chat with you as well.
Yeah, as I found you, I originally saw you guys. I think I saw you guys, saw one of your posts on Instagram or something, and I was checking out your stuff, and I was like, man, this would be really cool, like to work with the podcast and being somebody who likes the golf, and like I actually really like the products. Like it's not like something that I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just put this on the pod. Like I actually, I have 3 of the Swing 8 tumblers, a phone caddy, and one of the golf towels as well, and it's just I'm blown away by every one of them. I use my Swing Aid tumblers constantly, but I'm glad that we were finally able, after some conversation back and forth, we finally got something together. And now, you guys just heard about it in the in promo, but Roughnecks use promo code Roughnecks at desertfoxgolf.com for 10% off your order. So if you want to head over there as you're listening, or once you're done hearing this episode, definitely use that promo code and get yourself some Desert Fox Golf stuff. But I'm really glad that you guys took the chance to work with me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always nice to meet new people and be supportive of people's ambitions and things that they like to do out there. So happy to help you out, and frankly appreciate all of the goodwill you've brought our way as well. Letting people know about the products, helping spread the word. We're still pretty new. Started back in 2018, but it's a very long road to building a brand and awareness and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. I understand that a little bit with the podcast. Not quite like I don't have to sell for sure, let's say, but yeah, trying to build a brand, like build an image and become recognized is definitely not easy, which I'm sure we'll get into. But just to kind of kick off the episode, I like to allow all my guests to give a background on themselves. So tell the Roughnecks listeners who you are, and yeah.
Sure thing. Love to. So I know, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a little bit of a younger audience, which is fantastic. Give you a little bit of background, starting with college. Graduated from Penn State University in Pennsylvania there. Basically a degree in electrical engineering. Went off and took my not exactly my first job, but the first job that I ended up staying with for a long time. Long-time career guy at Intel Corporation out in Arizona. Spent over 23 years there, and while I was at Intel, got a master's in business administration from Arizona State University. So long time career Intel guy, all sorts of different roles, everything from product marketing to, hardcore engineering, software design, chip level design, all the way up until I was doing something called a technical assistant role to a general manager, helping run one of our business units when we were ushering in digital television and all that kind of fun stuff. So, ultimately started Desert Fox Golf back in, as I mentioned, 2018 with a long-term friend of mine. His name's Eric Fox. So now you guys know where the fox comes from. We live in the desert. So you put those two together, Desert Fox, and we started a golf company. So incredibly creative with the name. It is what it is. And, from there, we're off to the races. So I've been with Desert Fox Golf since then. Actually recently left Intel back in 2021. And now this is all I do full time. So considering myself semi-retired, basically doing the Desert Fox Golf thing. I always used to joke around with all my friends at Intel and tell them that at some point I want to sell lawn chairs. And it looks like instead of doing that, Cole, I'm selling cell phone holders for golf carts.
Yeah, which we'll get into the cell phone holders for sure because I want to kind of like get into like how that idea came about, but also, it's funny that you talked about being an Intel and for such a long time because that is like the big thing in our area right now, and Intel is being put in, and it's supposed to be bringing thousands of jobs, and you're seeing communities start to expand already, and it's not even done. But I mean, being in the blue collar workforce area, we are with concrete and stuff, we're experiencing shortages in that because of the plan in that and all kinds of different things. But Intel is a huge thing that's coming out here, and it's just funny how somebody you don't even know, there's a correlation, like a strange correlation that you just come about.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And again, originally I'm, born and raised just outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I have family of mine, an uncle that lives up in Painesville, have some friends, or excuse me, cousins that live just outside of Youngstown. So, very familiar with the area. And for years, whenever I moved out west, for the opportunity, I always wished that there was an Intel location back east, move back closer to family, friends, that type of stuff. And here we are, fast forward, 20 plus years, and they're actually building that huge plant out in Ohio, thanks to the Chips and Technology Act. So really exciting times to see that happening. The expansion of the company out to the East Coast, and it's kind of wild that you're right. It's a small world. You end up having a what do you want to call it? I guess an almost relationship through the company there at some point in time.
Yeah. But what was the idea? Like, why did Desert Fox Golf start? Like, how did it even start?
Yeah, probably the easiest way to really go back through the story is the evolution of the use of cell phones out on the golf course. So I started using a golf app called the Grint. Still very popular and one of the best apps out there that that I still use to this day. And in addition to that, I also started to use an application from Golf Genius in some of our golf leagues that we play in out here. So all of a sudden, your cell phone, is starting to become your GPS, your yardage, electronic scoring, and the list kind of goes on and on. And I mentioned my good friend Eric Fox. He's actually the inventor of the phone caddy. Introduced him to the whole golf app thing. He and I played a lot of golf together back in the day, and we would take your cell phone, throw it into the cubby, cram it into a drink holder. He'd leave it on the seat. One time, drove off, couldn't find his phone. It was like 2 or 3 fairways behind us, that kind of stuff, right? And it just so happens that at that exact same time, again, think this is like 2016, 17, the telephone companies kind of changed their model where you used to just get a cell phone and it was more or less free. And they kind of, switched that on all of us. And now you're buying the cell phone. Sure, you can still rent it, but at the end of the day, it's an extra 20, 30 bucks a month, that you're paying for until your device is paid off, right? And so all of a sudden the cell phone, went from becoming just something that's disposable to something that's truly, $1,000 that, you're going to throw into a cubby or it's going to get scratched up or, something like that. And the utility of it out on the golf course is just going through the roof, right? So the, kind of the convergence of those two things kind of led us to, him, going off and 3D printing a couple of prototypes. And he sent me a picture one day with his phone just kind of suspended on the upright strut of the golf cart. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And he explained it to me what he did. And he said, send me your phone specifications and I'll print one for your phone. And so, made one for my phone, and I was like, oh my God, this is genius. This is awesome. Now I don't have my phone, like I said, just thrown somewhere in the golf cart. And for sports, I hate having stuff in my pockets, right? So some people can do that. I'm just not somebody that likes to have a lot of stuff in my pockets whenever I'm playing golf. And so I was like, hey, this could be something. And to be completely fair, the first prototypes we built, it's 3D printed, right? It's not the highest quality. And you're looking at it and you're like, well, I'm just going to go buy one, right? And so me being the business guy, went off, did a bunch of competitive analysis, and realized there were not a lot of options, circa 2016, 17, for you to go buy a nice cell phone holder for the golf cart. So, his and my wheels started spinning, and, did a bunch of different prototypes, a business plan, all that kind of wonderful, good stuff. And, probably a good couple of 200, 300 some odd prototypes later, we came out with the actual phone caddy that we were able to take to market.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. Like when especially when I'm any sports, but especially golf, I don't like the first thing I do when I'm getting in the golf cart is everything gets emptied out of my pockets. I'm the same exact way. And like, the golf apps are becoming more and more popular. My brother has a rangefinder and stuff, and I've always just been like, oh, yes. But it changes the game when you're able to actually, have the yardage in front of you. And the golf app is something that I also went to, and people are like, oh, it's not accurate. There's discrepancies of how accurate it is and isn't. But there's been times where my brother shot it with the rangefinder and they're within like 2 yards of each other, and it's like, well, then like either they're both not accurate or they're fairly close. So and the losing the phone. I think everybody who's played enough golf has lost their phone at some point. Even if they're not using one of the golf apps, it's real easy. Like you'll just set it down. There's no great place in the golf cart for your phone, because if it gets put in the cubby, I mean, you really, most people won't ever see it again. Or some people like to play music or whatever, and it's a very convenient. The phone caddy's so convenient and awesome. It just makes it so easy to just have your phone right there, and if you get a call or anything, it's just right there at your convenience. And I really like how you guys, I'm sure this was something that took some time. I don't know if it came out this way exact at first, but like it fits any phone. It doesn't matter what kind of phone you have. It expands. It allows you to. It's universal essentially, which I really like. How long? Like, was that something that came out originally with it?
Yeah, you heard me mention that we had a couple hundred prototypes. There was a reason for that, right? And it was all around trying to figure out how we could make something very easily adjustable and potentially patentable. And so I wrote the patent for it. Thanks to my, many, many years at Intel, you kind of get used to doing those types of things. And so I drafted the patent, and it was approved, and basically got patented for, I think it was like last year, April of last year. And we have another one in the works now, and we call it phone fit technology. But you're absolutely right. I mean, it takes a lot to, it's not so much fitting the cell phone as it is all the unique cases that are out there. So everybody has a different case configuration. They have, pop sockets and other stuff that they put onto the phones. We'll never fit 100%. There's always, configurations that are just either too big or have too much stuff on them. But we're well into the high 90s, in terms of the number of phones that actually fit inside of the phone caddy. So you're absolutely right. Early on, a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of different design configurations, to figure out something that we felt was easy to use, and basically did the job as efficiently as possible.
And then you guys recently just came up with the cigar holder as well. Would you want to go ahead and touch on that?
Yeah, and kudos to us, I guess, in hindsight. It's always, hindsight's 2020, but we built into the original phone caddy base an accessory slot, and we both kind of knew about cigar holders that are out there and whatnot, and we were like, let's just build something, and maybe somewhere down the line, if this thing's successful, we'll add some accessories to it. And we actually have a couple more in the works, but that accessory slot, the first product that we decided to pop in there, is in fact a cigar holder. So the cigar holder has to be used with a phone caddy. So for anybody that's out there that isn't a cigar aficionado, hopefully this convinces you that having your cell phone in a better place is a good thing as well. But it's super simple. It basically just slides into the bottom of the phone caddy, and it's a spring operated plastic cigar holder. So you just lift it up, pop your cigar in there, and keeps it safe and secure whenever you're out playing golf.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when I first saw the cigar holder, and I was like, it's an attachment. I was like, that's not going to be the only one. There's definitely going to be other things that come with this, which I'm excited to see in the future what's going to come along with it. But yeah, that was, I mean, everything that you guys make, I feel like all of your guys' products are, it's like mainly about the convenience factor, and it does make everything so convenient because I mean, even cigars, like some people will shoot with them in their mouth, or some people will set it on top of the golf cart, or set it down on the green or on the fairway, like wherever they're shooting from, and like they just kind of get set around. And it's the same thing as the phone. You never, and like a cigar is something you don't necessarily want to just sit on something and put back in your mouth. So it makes it really convenient, and the convenience is like the one thing that I always go back to with you guys, which I love.
Hmm. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, we're like, again, first and foremost, we're avid golfers, and we wanted to build something that we would use. And I look at the phone caddy, and I often joke around with people, and I call it a puppy dog product. And if you don't know what that is, think about a dog, or anybody that's ever owned one, right? Or somebody that didn't want a dog and ended up owning a dog, right? And once you have it, you love it, and you never want to give it back. That's the phone caddy in a nutshell, right? There's a lot of people, frankly, even myself, whenever I first saw it, I was like really excited about it, but I'm like, am I really going to use this? Is this going to be useful? And I'll never forget it. The first time that I had my phone caddy out there and somebody wanted to try it, I'm like, oh, here, just use mine. I gave my phone caddy to somebody and I had to throw my phone back in that cubby. And I'm like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. I really do love my product. And so for the last, 5+ years, 6 years, I never go anywhere without it. I use it all the time. And when it comes to the cigars, I mean, you can slide that thing in there and you don't have to take it out in between rounds. So it just stays installed and, it's one Velcro strap and boom, your cell phone holder, cigar holders attached to the golf cart and you're off to the races. So, we do, actually think a lot about these things before we build them. They're incredibly simple products, right? They're not, we're not building SpaceX here. We're not launching rockets, but there is a lot of thought, a lot of engineering that goes into this stuff, and it's really nice to hear that people appreciate it.
I was gonna say, like, it is like some people will look at it and I bet people look at it also and go, "Why didn't I think of this?" Like, because it's something so simple, but yet like nobody thinks of it. And like, how long does it usually take? For like the cigar holder or like the attachments. I know you guys said you had a few hundred prototypes. Is that like what is the timeline roughly for a new product or something that you guys have released?
Yeah, well, the phone caddy, right, was originally, started doing some prototypes back in 2017, but it wasn't just the product, it was also starting a company. And that process in and of itself is one that, you don't step into lightly. I had a full-time career at Intel. Eric had tons of other things that were going on in his world. So half the battle is, developing the product. The other half is convincing yourself that you want to start, putting your own money, time, and effort into something to grow it and build a business. So for that one, I'll try to separate that question out into two parts. The product design, development, and all of that, easily 6 months, to 8 months to develop the phone caddy, kind of soup to nuts. There's certainly things that we could have done to go faster, for example, in hindsight again. But call it 6 months, 8 months to develop a product, bring it to market, and be off to the races. And again, the complexity of the product matters a lot. The phone caddy is not a super complex product. The cigar holder is much less complex. So that product, Eric started the design, I'll work on all of that, and we got it to market probably, I'd say maybe 3 months, maybe 4 months. But I'll give you a great example. Part of that is whenever you're building that, you have to be ready to scale, and you also have to have all your packaging, in order, right? And so one of the things that actually delayed it was all of our packaging. And so we worked with a company, to handle everything so that the package, basically came fully complete. So it's completely packaged. And, we basically just take it and start to ship it. The phone caddy isn't done that way. The phone caddy is done where we get all of the raw parts, but then we take care of all the assembly, the printing, the quality control and everything here in the United States. So two completely different types of product flows, and each one just kind of, brings its own, challenges, to the table. So like I said, the scar holder, much, much simpler product, call it about 3 months, maybe 4 months in total. And then with the phone caddy, probably a good 6 months to 8 months in reality.
What about the Swing Aid tumblers? Like, how long did those take? Because you guys also have, many different designs. Were these like, did you guys come up with one and then all of a sudden you guys were like, we could make these different designs? Because the Swing Aid tumblers are probably my personal favorite, but I also haven't living in Ohio, haven't been able to use my phone caddy as much as I would have liked to because there's cold weather
Right.
over here, so we don't get to golf as much, but I'm like that's why I'm itching for spring to be able to get back out and start golfing again, but, kinda the
Yeah.
swinging tumblers, what happened there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you and I really didn't connect until last fall, right? So you didn't get your hands on the phone caddies until later. So anxious to see how you love them this spring. Swing aid, very interesting path. The tumblers themselves are actually sourced, out of China, but we redesigned, the lid, and that's actually in process. So we worked with the guys over there to come up with some key pieces of the design, and that one was much 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 quicker, probably only a couple of months to get that original tumbler out the door. Again, came up with the first swing aid creative on the outside of it, and Eric was very quickly able to do all of the other variations. So we ended up creating an umbrella brand called Drink Aid, and then various aids underneath it. So we have swing aid, tennis aid, nurse aid, hunter aid, fishing aid. There's 11 SKUs in total. And when you get on a creative roll, you just kind of start banging those things out. So I think I was there, working with Eric, and he sent us the swing aid thing. And what's good about Eric is he's the initial creative, right? He develops something, and then each of us are able to kind of fine tune it. We have a couple of employees that work with us, so he would come with us with an idea, we would kind of fine tune it. But he one day just basically introduced us, said, hey, I've got like 10 more for you to look at. And so like with most creatives, you get in kind of a creative flow, and before you know it, you're just kind of cranking these things out. And since then, we've started to introduce a lot of other ideas to the mix. A lot of people that are purchasing the product are asking us, hey, do you have a teacher aid, for example, or do you have a, I'm trying to think, one of the other ones that hit us over the holidays. We got some requests for about three or four others that kind of came in. And so again, you just kind of take a step back, you start throwing on the creative hat, and figuring out how you want to build something out, and and you kind of run with it. So that one's a little bit different. It's a lot more off the shelf type of product. But as I mentioned, we are in the process of doing a little bit of a redesign on the lid. So when that's ready to go, I think that took maybe about 3 months or so to kind of finish that off. And when that's ready to go, then we'll put that into the product line, probably in the next, probably a month or 2 months or so.
What I love about them too is, like, I'm looking at mine right now and, like, all the like, every which way you turn it, you have some type of comical saying, which I really like, it's just the ingredients is my favorite probably well, I don't know, I say it's my favorite part, but I got the Patriot Aid one, how it says "Made in China," and then it has an arrow pointing at it saying, "The irony is not lost on us," and 60% of the time it
Yeah.
works every time. It just there's so many comical things because it's, like, a really cool thing. People like see my Patriot Aid, see my swing aid, like, man, that's really cool. And I'll like throw it to them. And I'm like, look at it, read it. Like it gets even better.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it is tough, in the product world. Patriota's a great example, and we certainly didn't want to, offend anybody out there that's in the military. We are huge supporters of the military. I think in our phone caddy, we have the patriotic edition, right? So we have the blue line, red line, green line. We used to work with Long Drive for Heroes, who would donate, money to the organization, on a quarterly basis. We continue to look for those types of opportunities. And the China thing is where I'm going with this, Cole, is, there are some that just really, we're not so happy, with that choice. And one of the things that you find in business is you're never going to please 100% of the people. And that's a guarantee. There's just absolutely no way to do that. And at the end of the day, we looked at it and said, hey, we're trying to build something that is comical, that makes people laugh, makes people enjoy what they're having. And we appreciate it when others can see that, and realize that don't take it quite so seriously. But at the same time, trying to do something to honestly build pride, and and expand that to other people and make people feel good about things.
Yeah, you guys also have like the customization options for these as well, and and the phone caddies as well. Do you guys see more? individual sales of like the ones you have on the website, or do you guys see a lot of, the volume sales that people want the personalized ones?
Well, it's a bit of a mix. We have a huge direct to consumer presence on Amazon. So with the phone caddy itself, the drink aid tumblers aren't on Amazon yet. They will be very soon. But with the phone caddy, the direct to consumer on Amazon is huge. We were the number one selling, the number one best golf cart accessory throughout all of 2022. So pretty amazing, to look at that and say, wow, something that we built, ended up as a number one bestseller on Amazon. So we absolutely crush it, on the direct to consumer side. But in addition to that, we have an entire wholesale side of the business. So the phone caddy is actually available in all of the worldwide golf properties. It's available in PGA Superstore. So you have that wholesale distribution channel that is available. It is available at a lot of green grass shops. So if you go into a pro shop, you might find it there. But then you talked about customization. There is an entirely other side of the business that we customize these for golf events, for company promotions, a lot of real estate agents, financial, advisors and things like that, like to give, gifts out to their clients that have their logos on them. This is an awesome promotional product in the golf industry because there's nothing like it, right? And you go to a golf event, you get tees, hats, balls, towel. It's kind of the same swag year after year after year. The phone caddy has been incredibly popular. You basically run the event. You have a sponsored item for the phone caddy, and 9 times out of 10, there's a large corporate sponsor that wants to use it, put their logo on it, and then everybody gets an amazing new product. The sponsor gets a really cool promotional item out there. Charity makes money on the entire thing, and of course, it helps sustain our business as well. So it's an amazing model that a lot of events have taken to market. And then the last chunk of that is promotional companies. So there is an entire industry of promotional products out there, and companies are looking for promotional products all the time. And this is just for any type of event. It doesn't even have to be a golf event. It's just a company that wants to give out a really nice product to somebody that they might know that's an avid golfer or something along those lines. Extend that to the swing aid tumbler and the drink aid tumbler line. Exact same thing. And for a limited time, we don't know how long we're going to do this. We're offering full customization of the design. So you can contact us. We can change the colors. We can change the ingredients on the can. Come up with a new name. We're being very open right now until such time that it just doesn't scale. Once it doesn't scale, then we'll have to kind of, turn it down a little bit or figure out ways to have minimums. But, we always try really hard to not have a minimum quantity or threshold on, doing any of these customs. I just have a friend of mine that I just met, I guess, getting like acquaintance, getting to know the guy, and they're doing a golf trip with a bunch of buddies. So there's 20 of them heading out, and he's like, "Hey, can you help me with the logo and build something really cool?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'd love to do that." So again, we can do that now, and we try to as often as possible to take those opportunities to build something really cool for people.
Is that one of the best ways, because like, being a company, literally a startup company that, started from just one design, is that like getting noticed, I feel like is definitely not an easy thing to do. And, slowly getting noticed and expanding. Is that one of the best ways to get noticed? Or like, how do those, being recognized, how does that come about?
It's an excellent question. It's hard, is the answer. We did so much and we continue to do so much. So a great example, I will be headed to the PGA show in Orlando, January 22nd. So 22nd through the 29th, the show's the back half of the week. The very first show we ever did was out in Las Vegas, 2018. These trade shows are huge. You go out, you make a presence in the industry, and then consistency. So this will be our fourth time, I believe, at the PGA show. First year, I kind of just showed up, went out to Walmart, bought a table, threw it up there and a big banner and said, "Hey, I have a phone caddy." Today, we have a full 10 by 10 booth, and we're a much more professional looking company and a much more professional looking presence. So you just start as big as you possibly can, and as big as you possibly can could be you in a chair at a golf event, and honestly, that's what we did for the first couple of years. But then you start to take that money that you're making in the business, you make an investment in the business itself, and the next time you show up, you have a 10 by 10 booth, right? And you just continue to build on that momentum. And then outlets, tons of different sales channels and marketing and promotional outlets, everything from email to, of course, social. Paid social is huge. That's how you ended up finding us, right? Through Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, something along those lines.
Mhm.
And you just have to continue to, find what you can afford, spend wisely, make sure that you measure, consistently so that you can continue to build that and put that money back into the business and grow it. That's kind of probably my best 2 cents in that. And it just takes a lot of time and effort. And you say no a lot more than you say yes early on. And then over time, you get to say yes more often. And that's really where it gets to be a lot more fun because you get to try stuff and take a couple of flyers here and there.
What's up, everybody? I hope you're enjoying today's guest. A lot of people ask me how they can support the Roughnecks podcast. So I wanted to take a quick break to tell you the best way to support the podcast is to buy and wear merch. We have merch available on our website, from hats, t-shirts, long sleeves, sweatshirts, and even coffee cups. There are even youth sizes available for the kids. Head over to roughneckspodcast.com and make your purchase today. Thank you for all the support, but let's get back to today's guest. Yeah, the part I really liked is, like, spend wisely, because, like, as a like you said, we have a lot of younger listeners, about, 24 to 26 is our biggest range for sure, but and it's like, a lot of those people may have in their mind right now, like, "I wanna start a business," or, "I wanna start a side hustle," whatever it is, and I see it a lot, and I've seen it, watched, the goods and bads of a lot of people starting companies or doing whatever, and it's like, they wanna go out and just, like, spend all this money all at once and, like, get everything that they have to have right away, and, sometimes that's not what it takes. Sometimes, like you said, it just takes a chair and a table or whatever it is. Like, spend wisely. You don't have to do everything all at once. Sometimes it's a little bit slower of a process, and that's okay, because now you guys have a 10 by 10 booth. You never know what it's gonna transform into, but you just have to work your way up to that.
Yeah, that has been our belief, and we've been incredibly fortunate and successful along the path, going that route. That said, we're also 100% completely self-funded. So Eric and I started the company, and we're able to do that. We were very fortunate to be able to do that, but we also started this company a lot later in life, than others. There are other ways to do it, right? You can go out and you can secure capital, and when you're flush with cash, again, you can spend through it incredibly quickly, but you can grow a lot faster. But no matter what you're doing, in my opinion, whether you have a lot of money or whether you don't have a lot of money, one of the most important things to do is measure your success. Know what you're trying to achieve and measure it. And if you're achieving those results, then you can easily spend more money on it. What I've seen happen too many times is that you just fall into the trap of, I'm just going to, invest and just continue to spend through it, and on hope, right? And something's going to happen, and you're not really doing the due diligence to see if you are in fact being successful. And it's not always just revenue, that's going to be a metric of success, right? You got to look at that. You got to be looking at profitability at all times. And like I said, we were very, very fortunate. Oddly enough, this is probably a whole nother podcast, but COVID, as terrible as it was for the golf industry, it absolutely lit that industry on fire. I mean, if you go out and you talk to anybody in the golf industry, or you go, Google this and look at the data that was out there, it was an infusion, that unlike anything else, because it was one of the rare things that we could actually all do. And here we are, basically in year two of the business, and our industry just exploded. So there's so much in terms of being in the right place at the right time, and that certainly was not in the business plan. So going into January of 2020, our whole focus was, hey, we're going to go crush the event business, and the event business went to zero in literally days. I mean, all of that stuff unrolled, and everybody canceled all their golf events, and we were like, oh my god, what are we going to do? You pivot 180 degrees, and you're like, consumer is the way to go. And next thing you know, you're doubling down on Facebook advertising, reaching consumers, launching a much heavier, investment in advertising and promotion on Amazon, and that side of the business, thank God, just took off. So, you respond, you react to those things, but you're always measuring and seeing what's working, what's not working. And like I said, there are other ways. There's not only one way to do something, but that was the path that we went, and it was a way, for us to do it in a way that kind of made sense for us.
Yeah, you like a big thing with business, I feel like, is you need to be able to pivot because you like you said, like you never know. I mean, no one expected COVID to happen. No one expected that that to come about. And you have to sometimes you have these plans and you have to I mean, you have to be prepared to pivot, but you can't like you have to hope for the best, but be prepared when things, your measurements or your whatever they don't go the way you want them to. Sometimes you have to just take that and transition a little bit to something else. And I mean, obviously, it worked out well for you guys, and it worked out well for a lot of businesses. That's the thing. A lot of businesses got hurt with COVID. I know people associate COVID with so many negative things, but there was a lot of good stuff that happened to a lot of companies, a lot of people as well.
Yeah, and like I said, we were one of the silver linings. I mean, it was very difficult for a while, until you are able to successfully transition the business, through that pivot, and then actually see the results on the other side. But we were very fortunate to be able to do that. And it's weird in business, right? Because you have to be incredibly focused, and you can't just chase everything that's out there, right? And so you have to know that whenever you are going to try something new, that you're able to try it, look for the success metrics, and then determine, do you just keep moving and forging ahead, or do you pivot again and you try something else? And I don't think there's no secret answer there. There's no okay, you need to wait 3 months, 14 days, and 24 hours before you make a decision to move off of that, right? A lot of that is, like I said, good fortune, luck, gut, again, trusting your instincts. There's just so much that goes into it that you just have to decide, okay, am I staying the course, not staying the course? And I mean, of course, the other thing that always comes in is you're always looking at opportunity cost, right? So if I'm doing this, what am I not doing? And if what I'm not doing would make more sense, then maybe it's time to put something on the back burner and flip to one of those other things. So again, like I said, I don't believe, I mean, like I said, I have 20 plus year career at Intel, another 5 years here at Desert Fox Golf. I've been in the industry for a very, very long time doing a lot of things, and I've seen and learned a lot along the way, right? There's a lot to be said with, you have to maintain focus, you have to make sure that you're doing the right things right. But at the same time, you've got to be open-minded and be willing to, make the changes when you need to.
Yeah, I wanted to ask one more question before we get into kind of the final segments. And, one of them was, or one of the things that I wanted to ask you about was kind of, leaving that job at Intel. Did you associate some risk with that? Because, I mean, obviously there was some there, but, kind of take us through, because I feel like there's people on the edge, a lot of people that, you know, oh, I don't want to take this jump. It's too risky. Like, but I mean, I learned about it a lot in my entrepreneurship classes in college and stuff, and just all the guest speakers we had. They all said, they kind of had a lot of them had similar situations to you, where they have, a very good full time job that pays well and is doing well in it, and then they just decide to go start their own thing, and it works out in the end. But like, kind of take us through like the deciding to take that leap and just the risk that's assessed with it, and kind of how you decide why you decided to end up taking the leap.
Awesome question. On a professional perspective, second hardest decision I ever made. First hardest decision that I ever made was when I left Intel the very first time ever. I ended up moving and taking a vice president of marketing and sales position at a small company in Pennsylvania. That first time I left the company was incredibly difficult, incredibly scary. I'm really glad I did it, because I ultimately tried something for a couple of years, and when it didn't work out, kept in great contact with all of my colleagues at Intel, and they welcomed me back, right? And I actually left the company and came back to the company that I left. Stayed there another 5 years, and then was faced with that decision all over again. Second time that I had to make that decision, considerably easier, but equally challenging and scary, right? I mean, I have, wife, kids, that type of thing. You're sitting there going, gosh, if this all just doesn't work, then what am I going to do? And oddly enough, I got to the point in, I would say, my life, not even in my career. Just, I think it's, for some people, they get there faster. For me, maybe it's because I was at Intel for a good 16 years before I ever left the company. That first time, but for me, I had learned a life lesson. And for me, it was, if you don't try to do the things that you believe you want to do, then you will never know if those things were going to be successful or not, because you never gave yourself the opportunity to fail. At the same time, you've never given yourself the opportunity to succeed either. So by doing nothing, by choosing to do nothing, I would have had no idea what this would actually have been. And you really get to that point where, as a co-founder of the company, that this is only going to grow one way. I'm either going to hire somebody to do the job that I'm doing and really go, gangbusters with it, or I'm going to go do that myself. And it was kind of weird, Cole, because you're sitting there going, I could go continue to do this safe thing that's over here that frankly I no longer wanted to do, or I could go do the thing that I really wanted to do, but had no idea if it was going to be successful or not. And it seems like a very easy decision when you just look at, okay, well, do you want to do A or B? And the answer is, I want to do B, then you go do B. And that safety piece and how I was, raised, I think all of your values, all those types of things, it just plays into that decision. And every single one of us is different. Every one of us, has a different history, a different life. And for those that have, that security foundation and they're really in a safe place, I think it's a little bit more difficult, for them to turn, to turn to something else and say, hey, I'm just going to abandon all of that and go in this other direction. At the same time, when you look at people that aren't in that situation and they're like, hey, this can only maybe potentially make my life better, equally scary, right? Because then you're in that rat race of, when am I ever going to have that thing that wins? Am I always going to be in a position where it's not going to be successful? So each story has a very different, a very different overall, umbrella, if you will. If you take a look at it from the, 100,000 foot, 50,000 foot level, never an easy decision. Easy whenever it's successful to look back and say, wow, that was the best decision of my life. But I'll use the the corollary of when I left Intel the first time. It didn't pan out for me, but it changed me forever, and it made me more willing to accept risk. It made me more willing to try things. And I think one of the lessons or life lessons that I've certainly looked back on my life is, I spent 16 years at Intel before I left. It's an incredibly long time. I don't know if I would give that advice to others. I certainly won't give that advice to my kids. I'll encourage them to be loyal, to stay with a company. And if you're loving something and if you're enjoying what you're doing, then stay there, but at any time that you're not, really take a step back and say, there are so many other things in this world that you can go try and go do. Go do those things, because if they fail and they don't work out, you will learn from it, you will improve, you will grow, and you will figure out what the next thing is. So that's kind of my incredibly long answer to a what would seem like a simple question, but frankly, like I said, the most difficult career decision was exactly that question that you posed. How do you leave something that is in fact providing you, with everything that you need in life, and how do you walk away from it?
It's crazy listening to that, because it's very like, I mean, I've got the same advice. I watch my dad, go through, he's worked at the same company for, I think, 40 years, and he's just been there for so
Yeah,
long. And he's probably been miserable for, I'd say, three quarters, half of it. And we always asked him,
yeah,
like, well, when are you gonna like go do something else? And he's always, and it's the whole comfort thing, like having the good job, having the pay, and all this stuff. And I remember him asking me one day, he was like, because I have a college degree, but I work a blue collar job, not really necessarily, I'm starting to work my degree into the things I do now, but, not necessarily working or using my degree. And I remember him asking, like, are you ever going to, try and go get a job with that your degree's based in? And I said, I'm not exactly sure, because I look at my job and I'm like, I'm happy there. I love the guys I work with. I have a good time. I genuinely like, honestly don't mind waking up on Monday and going to work. And he was like, that's the thing. And he's like, and you know what, worst comes to worst, if it things start to go bad, you have a degree to fall, or like you have something to fall on per se, and you can still go get another job. Like it's not like you're just going to be set out. But he's like, being happy. He's like, and he's like, you've seen it. I was miserable. Like I've been miserable for most of my time at this job. And I was like, then why don't you go do something else? But that's a whole nother conversation. But it was just he said like, if you're happy, that's what you want to be. Like because you spend a third of your year, whatever, I think it's a third of your year if you work an 8-hour day working. Like that's what you do, a third of your year. And that's a long
Right.
time to spend doing something you don't like doing. So you might as well make
Yeah.
the most of it and enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, listen to any of the the primetime speakers, motivational speakers, the very successful people out there. They'll talk about passion, right? You need to be passionate about something in order to be successful at it. And you can look at that and you can weave into that. A lot of people have taken that and made changes to it. You need to be happy. You need to be passionate. You need to be something along those lines. I just kind of roll it down to motivation, right? And when you wake up and you're motivated to go do something, whatever that something is that you're motivated to go do, you can figure out a way to then create money from whatever that thing is. And it's not easy. I'm not saying that it's an easy thing to do, but when you're motivated to do it, it doesn't matter that it's hard. Because that passion is aligned, putting in the time, putting in the hard work, to make it successful, oddly enough, is quote unquote easier than whenever you're doing something that you just frankly are disinterested in. So, for me, like I said, it's just, years and years and years of living on the planet, so to speak, right. And making a living. Um, you get to a point where you finally say, you know what, I'm gonna listen to all the people talking about, follow your passion, do what you enjoy, be happy. It's, you're only on this, planet for so long. Go give it a shot. And I think like yourself, Cole, I mean, my dad, lifetime, worker, basically worked his butt off. He was at actually US Steel. Remember, I was born and raised in Pittsburgh. So, I got to watch that as well. And oddly enough, it took me 16 years of kind of doing the same thing. Totally different job. There's a big difference between Intel and US Steel, but at the same time, I was following the exact same path. And took a lot. I mean, not gonna lie, it took a whole heck of a lot to convince myself that it was okay to give this a shot and go off and make it happen. And huge kudos and shout out to my wife, even though she probably will never listen to this. She was there to support me. And that means a lot. You need to have that support, whether it's a wife, a family member, a friend, whoever that is. It's always great to have that support to be able to help you through those types of really difficult decisions.
100%. And this is leading us into, I'm really excited for these last two segments of the podcast, but I got one question that I like to ask all my guests. And it is, if you could go back in time and tell your 16-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
Yeah, see, and I already ruined that one. I already kind of leaned on it. 16 years old or a little bit older, I would say. 16 years old, I would tell myself to certainly enjoy and try as many things as possible until the time that you do have to get serious with life and kind of settle down and make sure that you're on a good path. And that's a difficult thing to say. Well, when is that the right time? Is it at 20? Is it at 21? Is it 22? It's not an age. I think it's an individual decision that based on how you feel and where you are in your life and what you want to achieve and what success is for you as an individual, is where you make the decisions of, okay, it's time for me to go do something else. But embrace the time when you do not have, what I'm going to use this word, and I almost feel badly using it. I'm going to say the burden of, upper age and further adulthood. And I'm watching it with my kid. It's a good time that you ask me, right? Because my son's going to be 16 years old. I get to tell him these things now, right? And I can see the stress that he's under. He's 16 years old. I mean, it's hard, it's difficult. It's high school is challenging, and what am I going to be when I grow up? And now I got to look at colleges, and I vaguely remember those things and feeling overwhelmed. But quite frankly, at those ages, you're as free to do whatever you want as humanly possible. And the amount of money that it takes to sustain your life is probably about as small as it's ever going to be. So, for me
100%.
to go back, what's that? I'm sorry.
100%. I wish I could go back to no bills, and that would be amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? So, that's what I would tell myself, you have to go out and experience as much as you can because, as I've learned in my own life, it's through those experiences that you learn. And they're not all good, right? You learn through bad. You learn through things that go wrong. Half the time you learn more whenever something, blows up than whenever it goes successfully, and you just grow so much through doing all of those things. So, again, 16 years old, that's the type of advice that I would definitely give to myself and anybody else out there is to go and to try and to experience and to not be afraid. I know that things seem very overwhelming, at that age, and you got to get your act together. Everyone's going to tell you, you got to get your act together. End of the day, you have so much time, when you're 16. I mean, there's just so much linear time left. I think I've even heard Gary Vee, talk about that, right? I mean, there's just so much time that you have to do all of those other things that like that you must do, right? And I talked a little bit earlier about passion and doing things that are fun. It's not always fun. There are things in life you must do. You just have to suck it up and you got to do it. It's not that everything's going to be fun. But at that age, gosh, you certainly are about as unencumbered as it comes when it comes to being, free and able to try a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, some of those things that aren't fun, but if you just treat it sometimes, because like some of the worst days of work that like we are all dreading, the concrete day or whatever it might be, or getting covered in fiberglass and for cutting holes in the pool, is it's like, you're dreading the certain days, and it's just like, I remember getting into the shop one day and my boss like super excited, like ready to go out, and we're like, "What is going on?" He's like, "I just came to the conclusion if I get excited about it, it's not that bad." And it kind of helps a little bit. It puts you in a little bit different of a mindset. If you go in dreading it, it's going to be long and it's going to suck. But if you go in with a little bit of a positive attitude, yeah, it's still going to suck because I mean, let's be real, that's what's going to happen. But it's a little more enjoyable if you just have a positive attitude about it. Not saying it's going to fix
Yeah.
all the problems, but it definitely will help.
I absolutely love that perspective, and it probably has taken me 40 plus years to realize it. Right? You choose every day. You choose how you want to approach the day. You can choose to wake up and say, "Wow, this is going to be absolutely miserable, and it's the worst day of my life because I got to do X, Y, Z." Or you can choose to wake up and say, "Hey, this is going to be a difficult day, but I'm going to make the best of it. I'm going to be around amazing people, and when I'm done, I'm going to be really proud of what it is, and more importantly, it's over." I can move on and go
Exactly.
do something else. So, no matter what it is that you're in, whatever that thing is you're doing, whether it's a day, a month, a couple of weeks, it's going to end, and then there's going to be something else after it. So, I absolutely love that perspective, Cole.
This perfectly moves us into the best segment of the podcast, though, which is Motivation Monday. Motivation Monday is the point in the episode where I allow the guests to give the Roughnecks listeners a little inspirational bump to set the tone for their week as they listen on Monday morning. So I'm curious to hear what you got from Motivation Monday.
I'm just going to recap it, man. You wake up every single day and you choose, how you're going to be that day. Choose to be happy, choose to be excited, choose to go out and make the best of the day. Not telling you that it's going to make, that day amazing and it's always going to be roses and cherries because it's just not going to happen. But every single day you wake up and you just make that decision that you're going to make the best of everything, and it sets the tone. You wake up and you just try to make the best of it. And for the record, I don't do it every day. I don't. I tell myself this same advice much more frequently now than I ever have. You just have to do that. And you'd be lying to yourself, I think, if you were going to tell yourself that every single day you're going to be successful doing that. But I'm seeing more and more of it, out there. I think, anyways. And I was reading a post on LinkedIn the other day, and it was very similar to this, type of advice, which is you get to choose. You can wake up and you can choose to be happy. You can choose to be, excited about going to do your job. You mentioned it. You can choose to be, reasonably motivated to go into concrete day and be successful. One of the fun things that I see on TikTok, Instagram Reels right now is it's the, holy shit, I built that type of moment, right? I probably am paraphrasing here. I'm not getting it right, but there's so much that, when you're done with something, you look back on it and you're like, damn, I did that. That success is huge, and, you look back on those things. It wasn't easy getting there, but when you look back on it, take those moments, use those moments to build you up, lift you up, and move forward. And, you are going to have the bad ones. Let them go. It's whatever it is, let it go and move on, because you can only control what's going to happen tomorrow. Can't handle anything that's happened in the past.
Exactly. Like those bad moments that happen, let it go. You learn from it. You don't, you never want to have that happen again. So that's where you can learn from it and grow from it. And there's just so many ways, just having a positive and being happy and just yes, the world's not going to be perfect. Like things are going to go wrong. It is inevitable, and you'll have something go wrong every single day. There's at least one thing that's going to go wrong, but it's how you man it. Like you can't control everything, but what you can control is how you react and how, things go from that point forward. So you can make it a big deal, and then you can ruin, how much time do you want to ruin? Do you want to ruin the rest of your day, or do you want to take 5 minutes and get mad about it and then kind of move up past it? Now, like you said, we're not perfect at it. We're still going to, spend hours, still frustrated about something that happened, yesterday, whatever it is, it's going to happen where we're not perfect at it. But if you just continue to kind of build that mindset of yourself, eventually it's just going to continue to get easier and easier to move past things and let them go.
Couldn't agree more, Cole. Couldn't agree more.
But with that, that's all we have for today's episode. Scott, thank you so much for coming on the show and allowing the Roughnecks podcast to work with Desert Fox Golf. Where can people check out your products and follow you guys on social media?
Yeah, so social media, we're on, Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. It's always at Desert Fox Golf is the handle. And then our two websites are desertfoxgolf.com and then desertfoxproducts.com. And, again, through the Roughnecks podcast, use the code Roughnecks and you guys can save 10% on the vast majority of our products that are out there. And really looking forward to working with Cole and, seeing what he can do with the podcast here over the next couple of years. It was a real pleasure with, giving me an opportunity to chat and be on here for the last hour or so. And like I said, really looking forward to seeing what you got coming up over the next year or so.
Oh, I'm excited. I think we got some things that will be in touch about, a little bit of some customization options maybe that might come into play here in the future, but I'll leave that at that right now. But like you said, go use the promo code Roughnecks to get 10% off your order. Thank you everyone for tuning in today. And until Friday, you guys know the deal. Life is hard and is going to knock you down just like a bull does to a bull rider. Don't let that bull of life walk all over you. Get up, grab the bull by the horns, and take control of your life. Roughnecks, out. Thank you guys for tuning in to today's episode of the Roughnecks podcast. If you liked today's episode, then please be sure to share it with a friend. You can follow the Roughnecks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Roughnecks Podcast. Head over to roughneckspodcast.com and grab yourself some Roughnecks merch. Until next time, make sure you grab the bull by the horns and take control of your life. Roughnecks